A good day to all of you. This session is about STU troubleshooting, and we are going to discuss about the basic and the high level troubleshooting which are required in STU for any kind of environment. I have listed out the list of topics which you are going to have an overview, and the topics are uh, firstly the system LED, how to check the basic system LED status and its possible causes and the errors which are caused due to LED, that we are going to have an overview. Nextly, we are going to have alarm management. What are the different types of alarm management which are generated in the STU? And next, we are going to check the GPS alarm. Why a GPS alarm is cast in the STU, and how do we use the STU commands to check the GPS alarms. And nextly, we are going to check about the PTP alarms. As you know, PTP is precision time protocol and it is widely used in STU, and we are going to check what are the PTP alarms, why it is cast, and how we are going to check it. And nextly, we are going to check about sync alarms. As you know, the GPS sync are more or less related, and we are going to check what are the alarms which are generated in STU for syncing. And nextly, we are going to have STU L checkup. What are the basic commands and high level commands and low level commands which are required for STU do a L checkup. And nextly, we are going to have a configuration overview of the STU. What are the types of configuration which exist in STU for 4G and 5G topology, that we are going to have an overview. And lastly, we are going to have STU installation procedures. What are the different types of installation procedures which are in the STU? And the session ends. And I'll be taking questions. We'll be taking questions in a different session. Since this is a recorded video, we are not going to have any questions. Or we are not going to answer any questions, but we will try to take the questions when we are going to give a live session to you. And that's all about the overview of this session. And let's jump into STU document, because I hope the STU document has been shared with all of the members who are in Rakuten. So that's the document. If you don't have, we can share it again, not a problem. And this is the document, the STU troubleshooting document. This is one of the critical documents because it lists out the basic and the necessary commands at a high level as well as on the low level for uh, checking any issues which is coming in the Rakuten environment. So this is a critical document. I hope you will, any network engineer or Rakuten engineer who's operating STU will find this document very useful. Let me go through this document. So let me begin with the LED status, how to troubleshoot the LED status in the STU. First one is power LED. So when the power LED is off, what are the possible causes and what are the recommended actions? As you know, when the power LED is off in STU, there can be only two causes. Either there should be a power cable connection or there should be a rectifier problem. So the recommended action from DCS would be to check both, and that is the recommended option when the power LED is off. Next, how can a power LED be in run LED status? So run LED status is something when the LED is blinking continuously for 5 minutes or more, even after when the STU power is applied. This means that the STU booting is not complete. So the LED repeats itself after every 5 minutes. So the recommended action from Dasan would be either to turn off the STU completely and reboot it, or if the same phenomenon is repeated, probably you have to file an RMA to exchange the STU. And nextly, the alarm LED. So when the alarm LED is on, there is a separate alarm LED in the STU. When the alarm LED is on, what are its possible causes? Alarm LED can be on when the GPS connection is unstable, when there is a problem. So, and there might be other problems as well which can generate the alarm LED. It can be due to rectifier problem or a power AC input failure or a battery failure, or it can be due to STU high temperature, high CPU, or a memory alarm. So how do you check whether this alarm LED is caused due to any of these cases? You can use the command show LED status. This will list you the cause of why an LED alarm is generated. You can see it can be due to temperature, or it can be due to CPU, memory, or GNS. So when you have a problem, it will be on state. And there is another command which is given, which is store status alarm, store status external alarm interface, which will precisely locate the failure. So you can use this command to check as well. And supposing, let's say if you have a temperature alarm on, here, what are the further steps which are required? You can use show status temperature to check the temperature status. Let me show it to you here. Show temperature status, and the temperature should be within the threshold, and the threshold value is given here. So the current STU temperature is well within the threshold, so no problem about it. And when the CPU load is on, you can see here we have CPU alarm off, but when it is on, how to check it? Let me press the command again. Copy the wrong command. Okay. So you can see here the threshold value and the number of CPU processes which are utilized. You can use show CPU command. So when the temperature is on, when the CPU alarm is on, you can check this will be in a different value. I'm showing the normal value status because I couldn't replicate this in Rakuten environment. Similarly, for show temperature, I couldn't replicate the faulty ones because we can't simulate that environment in the Kiba lab. And that's the reason why I'm showing you this STU commands for troubleshooting commands with normal values. Okay. And when the GNS alarms are on, then I would give you the commands probably in the later point of the session, because it is a vague topic, so it requires a detailed explanation. So I will explain it later. So let's switch on to the next part, which is alarm management. So far we have discussed about system LEDs. Just to recap, we have discussed about the system LEDs, what are the type of LEDs, how it can generate. So far we have discussed. Then we will proceed to alarm management. What are the kinds of alarm which are generated in the STU? If you see here, alarm management, we have an alarm called user login file. So this is very simple. So when you log into STU using Cisco ICE account, or when you're logging into STU using Cisco STU local account, if you have any authentication failure, or when you are authenticated into the STU, this alarm is going to be generated by default, when you can check this alarms and why it is caused. Nextly, port status. So when a port is not down, when a port is not up, when it is down or operational, what are the possible causes? The possible causes might be either due to misconfiguration or a physical link or an optical module problem. How do you check the interface status? The command is listed here, show interface status. So let me go to STU, and if I put show interface status, it is going to list me whether the particular interface is up or not. Right now in the environment, you can see one interface which is up and up status, and you have the interface status. And secondly, when a port is down, it is going to show you down status, as you can see. So, and these are the commands to check whether the interface status is on or not. Secondly, how to check the power of the optical module. So if there is an optical module problem, how do I check? If there is an optical module problem, you can check using the below command. Let me paste it. Show interface 1. Let me check for the normal interface, and then I'll go through the abnormal interface. If you check the show interface module command, it will show you what kind of transceiver is used, what kind of speed it is used, and what kind of vendor it is used, and vendor part name, vendor revision name, serial number, etc. And the transmit power and the receiving power, and these are the default values. And you can see the power state, what is the transmit power, and what is the status of the receive power. So this is an important critical command. You will use the two commands very often to check the STU. Okay, so please remember this command. And this is how you check a port down alarm status. Then CPU over threshold. So how do you check when a CPU is over threshold, and what are these causes? And possible cause is given, but how do you check it? You can use show CPU command. Sorry. You can use show CPU command to check the interface status. What is the threshold? What is the timer? This is a basic command to check the CPU load. And there are other commands which are helpful as well. Show process. This is a very important command. It will show what are the processes which are running behind it, and what are the memory percentage which are utilized by the process. So if you have any process which are listed here, you can definitely share it with tech support, and we will be able to identify the problem. Next, the alarm name is memory overuse. So how do you how do you check whether a memory is overused or not? You can use show memory system. So if you put show memory system, it will show you the list of memories, how much total memory you have, how much free memory, what are the buffer cached, and these status can be seen using show memory command. And there are other commands as well, which can show you the memory status as well. And port over threshold, you can check port over threshold command using what are the types of mm, transmit and receive port utilization, uh, utilization of percentage for data received during poll interval. So you can check that using show interface static interface command. Let me put that here. So you can see here it lists out all the interface. Number of unicast packets, number of multicast packets, broadcasts, errors, pause frames, and other statistics related to an interface, how long the interface is being used. And you can always clear this interface count using clear command, which will clear the statistics, and you will be able to regenerate um, the count of the unicast packets, multicast, broadcast, errors, and everything using the interface statistics command. And you have another command as well. You have show average type. So this will give you an holistic picture of how a packet is traversing to a particular interface. This is a very useful command as well. Next, IP conflict. If STU has an IP conflict, how do you check it? You will use show IP v6 DHCP command to check if a particular interface If a particular STU which is configured with an IP uses a different IP which is used on some other device, how do you check? You can show using show IPv6 command. So right now this is not utilized, so it shows the DHCP device. I couldn't simulate this, so I will skip this. Probably you can, when there is an IP conflict, it will be automatically, you can verify using this command. And temperature, so if there is any, how do you check if STU has more temperature? This can be generated using SFP. This high temperature can be because of an high alarm due to SFP module. So how do I check when the STU temperature is high? You can use these two commands, STU temperature and module interface command. As you can see, it lists out the temperature as well. And then we generate it. So this is the command to check what is the temperature of the STU. So it should be within the threshold value. And you can use any low alarm checks. You can use the same command to check if there is any low alarms on the STU. And nextly, voltage over high alarm. So how do you check an voltage over an high alarm? You can use the same command to check voltage. Let me show you. So this is the power. So you can check the simple command. It's a very useful command to check the power, voltage status, whether it is high or low. These are the commands. And transmit bias, you can use the same command to check the transmit bias checks. And power status on the transmit side, same command to check what is the power status on the transmit side. On the receive side, and same command to check the receive side, receive power and the power state. So this is the basic command to check. Let me skip. And we have temperature threshold over alarm. So this alarm is generated when the threshold is very high. So you can use the temperature command, and threshold over low alarm, you can use the same command to check and eliminate any task. And next is MAC learning overflow. If the MAC table is exhausted or if there are no new MAC addresses in the table, how do you check? You can use the show MAC address table. Let me execute this command in the STU, which will show you the list the MAC address which are learned via different interface. And this is similar to Cisco, wherein you can check how long a MAC address has been active, and similar kind of setup has been used here. And then LACP trunk member detached. So when the link aggregation is not useful, you can always check show interface status and check the interface for LACP member trunk member problems. And rectifier, you can use the below command, which I think we have already executed. Under normal scenario, you can see any problems which are generated. We have already gone through this. For input failure, battery exchange signal. So it was all generated using show status alarm interface. And to detect any sync failure, we will go through this in the later section. And to detect any GNS state unlock status, we'll go through this in the later session as well. And PTP server clock unlock state, whether to check any if the PTP server state is locked or PTP state is locked or unlocked, how do you check it? We will go through this in the later session in this. And this is about oscillator fault. The STU has an internal oscillator, so if it is faulty, what kind of checks we have to do? That alarms are listed here. And this is one of the and that's it about the alarms, the basic and the detailed alarms which is listed here. And we are closing chapter number 2, alarm management. And next we will go through clock GPS alarm. So what is a clock GPS alarm? So as you know, a GPS signal is one of the important signals which are required to maintain the clock status. So it is different on 4G and 5G topology, but we will list you how to check if STU has a clock problem or not. So how a alarm is generated. You see GPS alarm. So it can be when there is a weak GPS signal or GPS state, alarm is going to be generated. How do you check a GPS signal is in received or not? You can use show GNS status to check the GPS signal. Let me show you. So show GNS status. If you see here, right now this STU receives the clock state, which is given here. GNS clock. This means the STU is receiving the GPS signal from the GPS. Either it may be simulator or it is connected to GPS. It means that it is receiving signal. And it lists the number of satellites, active satellites, which is here. And if the number of satellites is less than 6, with a carrier to noise ratio of 36 dBs, then it might be a problem. So you can check this. This is a very important command. To check the number of satellites, you can use show satellite status. So it will show you the number of active status of each satellite and carrier to noise ratio. This is a very useful command to check the show GNS status. And you have nextly to check the show system clock. Show system clock. This can also tell you whether the GPS is having a problem or not. Let me type this command on the STU. So if you run show GNS clock, it will show you the GNS status, and we are receiving a valid GNS. This is synchy and this is oscillator. So this is also one of the troubleshooting commands to check the GNS status. And if you want to check any UART count check, you can use the below commands. I'm not using this because if I use this in the Kiba environment and it is not good, so I'm avoiding this command. Probably you can run through this and check the URA count account. So when a GPS is locked, this is the normal scenario. When GPS is unlocked, this is going to be valid, and the GPS status is going to be in unlock state. You can see here it will be in unlock state. So we have taken a captures here to list you what is the GNS status. You can see here when there's a problem, it is going to be GNS lock state. When it's a normal, it is going to be GNS lock state. And the satellite, number of satellites to be in active state. Show system clock command. The source is GNS here, and the state is lock. So these are very important commands that you should be keeping in mind. So we have completed clock GPS alarm. Then we are going to see about PTP alarm. So PTP alarm, how to check a PTP alarm or not. First, you can check the PTP port status. A particular port is a master or slave. So you can see here, show PTP port. Let me run this command. So it will list each interface status, whether it is a master or slave. You can check using this PTP port command. It's a very useful command. And also there are similar commands which are here, which will be useful to check the PTP status. And you can also check the status of the link. Why the PTP, if the interface is down, then PTP alarm would be generated because it doesn't receive the PTP messages. And you can check the PTP messages which are received on the particular interface. Let me run this command. So you can see these are the messages announcing follow-up, delay request, delay response, and other messages of the PTP protocol, you can use it, use this command to check. You can see here the sync and the follow-up and the delay request and response packets which are received on the STU. So you can check these commands for the alarms which are generated for PTP. And you can always run the clear statistics in case if you want to clear the statistics on the PTP. This will be reset to 0 and it will count the new PTP statics for a particular interface. So running configuration or raw running interface. You can check the configuration if you find any configuration issue related to PTP. And these are the commands. Let me go through. Show PTP port. As I said, you can check whether it's a particular port is in master state or slave state. When the particular port is in slave state, and this is how it will be listed. This is the command for show PTP data default and data present. Show interface status 01. So it will list all the interface status which we have already gone through. Show interface statistics average ETH01. So this is also a useful command which will list you, and this is already explained. And this is to clear the PTP statistics for a particular interface. And the configuration here, what is the profile which is used, what are the mode of transport which is used for PTP, whether the clock is a Grandmaster Brownlee clock, and the mode which is given here, and the clock offset, and the clock offset is also given here. So these are the basic commands for PTP. And next is Synchy alarm. So so far we have gone through system LED, alarm management, clock GPS, PTP alarm, and clock Synchy alarm. We will go through what a clock Synchy alarm is. So Synchy alarm can be generated for the possible causes, can be a connectivity fault. How do you check the show Synchy details? So if you run the show Synchy details, it will show you the Synchy status. As you can see here, we have the Synchy status here, and we have it in lock state. So this is one of the important command to check Synchy. And also we can check the Synchy EMSC counters. Also interface status can also use to check the interface link, because when the Synchy link is down, probably you can need to check the show interface status as well. And these are very useful commands to check the Synchy. And you can see here during abnormal time it shows no lock. That means there's a problem in the Synchy. When the Synchy is locked, it is normal. And you can check the system clock status, different interface commands, and shows Synchy interface commands, and what are the type of ESMSC MC counters which are reviewed for Synchy. As always, you can use the clear Synchy ESMSC counters to clear the statistics. And if you want to verify the input sources of Synchy, you can use this command to verify the Synchy input sources. And this is the performance management for a particular port. This is given only for your overview. So if you go through this, it will be of good value of this troubleshooting document. Okay. And next we will go through the L-check guidelines. So you will, this is the STU device, how it looks, probably front view and rear view. And there are 3 alarms which are here: power, run, and alarm. So these alarms are already explained. So when the power and the run is on, that means the that means the STU is running properly. So these are the status and its description. So when the power is off or on, what would be the status condition? When the green is on or blinking, what would be the condition? When alarm is on or off, what would be the condition? This is the port LED operations. which is given here. So these are the interfaces of the STU, and this is the console and the management port, and you have the LEDs here. And this lists down the type of speed and the type of interfaces which are supported by the STU. So number one port supports 25 gig and 50 gig port, and second is the 25 gig port. So it supports, you have the GPS and the DC power terminal, management port, console port, LED, alarm, and you have the 100G port and the 3C interfaces. And these are the types of modules or connector types which can be used. And these are the indicator operations of the interface status, so which is given here. And what are the status? This is simple, so you can go through here. And also indicator operations of 50 and 100G port, which is given here. And also the management console status, active, link, receive, transmit. This is given here. CPU load checks, we have already checked. These are the basic checks you have to do. Memory check, show memory system, which I've already shown you how to check memory. You can check as a part of health status. And system temperature, of course, yes, you have to check a part of health status. And module DDM is digital diagnostic monitoring, to check the optical modules which are inserted into the STU. You can use this command, which I've already shown you how to check. If there is any errors, alarms which are generated, and how it can be checked, you can check the alarm status. And system clock status, you can use this show system clock, which we have already gone through to check the system clock status. These are the basic health checks, and you can use show interface status to check if a particular interface is up or not. And you can check always the latest version using show version and show flash command, just like other devices. And clock GNS, you can use this command to check the clock status. Since this is health check, the commands are the CLI commands which are used to verify the basic health checks of has already been discussed. So I'm skipping this quickly. Clock PDP, which we have already discussed. Clock sync we have already discussed. And the installation. So in the installation, we will use the default config, and by default, Rakuten has suggested us to use the below ports for um, for 4G and 5G topology. And normally you can customize STU to support any device, but this is Rakuten standard, so we are assigning ports ETH1 and 2 for 5G FH, 3 and 4 for 4G FH, 5 to 7 for millimeter wave, and 8, 9, 12 for millimeter wave or sub 6. It can be customized. 10 to 11 is reserved. 13, 15 we are using for sub 6, and 16 for 4G CP. So this is the reservation which is currently done by default, but you can customize STU as if required. So this is the optical module information. So this are the optical module information which is used by the Rakuten. So you can have this as a reference to check any optical module issues, different type of vendors, and the recommendations is given here in this document. You can go through it. Let me skip this session because this is the vendor oriented documentation. And lastly, we have the configuration overview for 5G and 4G. What is the default configuration? So currently, STU can be used either as 5G or 4G. So 5G means that if the GPS and the STU connection is lost, a backup clock using G.8275.1 profile is received and activated. 4G configuration means if the GPS and STU connection is lost, it works by receiving clock G.8275.2 from Grandmaster. So the 4G and 5G uses two different clock profiles. But the default configuration, let us see one by one. So for 5G, the default configuration is can be shown by running a command show running config. Similarly in 4G as well. And in 5G, this command is used for password encryption, and this is host name. This on the 4G and 5G, it is similar, there is no change. And these are the password credentials. Local accounts or ICE accounts which are to be integrated can be used here. So there is no change in this. These are telnet services, service, FTP and SSH services to be enabled in STU. So there are no changes in it. This is for TechAx integration, iServe integration, so there are no change in it. The things which are given in here are default configuration, which will be pushed to IN through OSS. So it is given in green. There is no change in it. And this is syslog output, logging monitor. There is no change between 4G and 5G. SNMP traps, no change. And the VRF management and the radio management VRF, which are used by default, there is no change. But if you consider clock profile, there is a change. And if you consider mode of transport of PTP, there is a change. So in 4G, we are going to use .2 profile. So that is why we are using what is highlighted in green here. And if you see the input source, it's going to be different here. For 5G, it's going to be Syncy, and input source for 4G is going to be PTP. And the mode of PTP transport, here it is going to be Ethernet in 5G, whereas in case of 4G, it is going to use UDP. So the mode of PTP transport is different, so that is why the clock profile is given here. And for 5G, you use .1 profile, and 4G, we use .2 profile. IP domain name lookup is similar to both, so there is no change. Our name server is received from the OSS. VLAN database, what are the VLANs which is defaultly configured, that is given for both 4G and 5G. Interface management, if you want to, this is the default interface management. You want to configure interface management, you have to physically configure it. Loopback interface, radio management is similar. And as I described earlier in the Excel, based on Rakuten's recommendation, we have assigned the default ports. So if you refer it, you will come to know that these are reserved for 4G, 5G FH, 4G FH, millimeter wave reserved sub-6, and 4G CPRI. Accordingly, the interface will be configured. So this is for 5G FH, and if you consider here the mode of transport of PTP is different, so we are going to use UDP here. No more Ethernet for 4G. For 5G, we are going to use Ethernet. These are the VLANs. Trunk VLAN, either a port is a trunk or an access. And 4G FH, that's going to be similar, except the mode of transport that we are going to use. Millimeter wave, it's more or less going to be similar configuration 4G and 5G, except the mode of transport. Similarly, for sub-6, there is going to be a similar configuration, sub-6, and the PTP transport. Here we are using PTP transport mode, which is additional configuration which is required in the 4G. And the NTP server, which we are going to reserve from OSS. And the line command and the privilege command are given here. So this is basically for line terminal access. And this table lists out the commands or the service line commands which you are going to receive from OSS. As you can see, this is defaultly enabled. Host name we are going to receive from OSS, so that is given here. And this is defaultly included in the default configuration, so it doesn't receive from OSS. So this command is received from minus, it is checked here. So the things which are received from OSs are given checked here. And so these you can go through. Or SNMP traps, it is received from minus. Name server, DHCP, CPNR, we are going to receive. And rest are the default configurations, which is enabled by default. So this is a very useful tabular column, which you can go through. An NTP server, which is received from the DHCP option of some CPNR, is given here. And this is for 4G, what are the default configs which are and the values which are received from OSs. So this table is given here. So the host name which is received from the OSs, and this command is received from the INAS, and TechAx is received from the OSs. System output remote is received from the OSs, and SNMP server is received from INAS, and the mode is received from the INAS. Quality PTP is received from INAS. Input source of the PTP received from INAS. So these are the values received from the INAS, and the name server from the DHCP6 option, and the VLAN database, and interface management and the radio management, which we have already discussed, and the default configuration for and 4G and 5G topology respectively. So this is very useful. You can have a note it down. So we are done with the configuration overview about 4G, 5G, and we will go through STU installation. So the STU installation is simple. So what are the required tools and equipments that you required for connecting an STU? For example, optical modules, console, management, GPS, fiber connector, power cable, grounding cable for connecting any STUs. What are the components which you require for connecting each of the interface that you always use? What are the grounding requirements of an STU? So grounding is a very important part in STU, so you have to use the grounding procedures in the STU, and what are the cautions for this, and the cabling requirements. You can use different types of cabling for installing the STUs are given here: LC type, GPS cable, console cable, power cable, alarm cable, interface connections. And so if you go through this, it will be of good knowledge. And the optical connection with optical module is given here. What are the recommendations? How to connect an alarm interface recommendations are given here. So connecting in a console interface. So what is the settings that you should use in order to use console port? What is the baud rate and the data bits? And it should be set up given here. So the installation recommendations are given here. So it is necessary for you to have a physical look on the STU and to go through this simple explanation, which will be very useful for you to take on any installation requirements. So that's it for the troubleshooting sessions. If you have any questions or any issues related to STU troubleshooting guide, please feel free to reach to us at DCS Rakuten Tech Support. So mail ID will be shared with the Rakuten RMI contacts. So we'll be able to assist you at any given point of time. Thank you. Have a nice day.